Warranty Wire.
Customer trust.
AI.
Every day in the warranty world.
Welcome back to Warranty Wire. So the place for real talk about warranty in the age of automation, AI, and elevated expectations.
Hey, Matt, real quick. Sorry to apologize. Apologize for interrupting. I thought it'd be really cool. Take a moment and get to know you personally and your background. So share with us a little bit about your background and how you got into the warranty protection space?
Sure. Yeah. Happy to share. So me, in terms of my background, I'm from a really heavy OEM background and the connected car space. So I'll probably expand on that a little bit more in terms of connected car, but connected car is all to do with data. It's all to do with how can we use the data from the car to be able to advance consumer expectations in terms of being able to help out with things like usage-based insurance. So that's very much my background, very data heavy.
Cool.
Now, yep, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, is it cold there?
Oh, I mean, it's the UK. It's always cold.
Yeah, man. Like it's just a lovely, I guess, fall day here in the Dallas, Texas area, and you look cold.
Sweater is a second skin in the UK. So.
Awesome. Hey, so were you always originally? Are you born and raised in UK?
I am born and raised. I've lived both in both countries of the UK, in England and Wales, and it's equally as cold in both.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Have you lived anywhere else outside of?
Nope. I'm well traveled, but in terms of living, just born and raised UK.
That's awesome. That's cool. So ultimately, hey, what drew you to this industry? Was it product? Was it technology? Something else?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of both, to be honest. So I think for me, because I've worked so heavily with the OEMs, being able to help them kind of advance technology, being able to use, we always a motto of kind of like data for good. Really, for me, I've always seen that the product is there. The product has always been there when it comes to warranty, but I think the technology has always been a little bit behind the product. So, for me, when it comes to warranty and protection, I saw there was so much scope really to be able to change the industry for the better, and just by having a different mindset. And this is definitely nothing against the OEMs, but there's very much, that kind of very big corporation thinking mentality with OEMs where it takes, decades to see any change. So for me, just having that kind of mindset of this is cool. We can use data, we can use protection products, we can actually bring something to the consumer. That's what drove me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess when you're not working, like what do you do? What do you do for fun besides standing in line?
Well, when I'm not working, so you mean when I'm not eating, thinking, dreaming about warranty, like regularly?
Exactly.
So I guess one interesting thing about me is, despite the fact that I am a very typical Brit, as most of you who've listened previously, I am hugely into my country music.
Hey, so this is new to me. So obviously in Dallas for, almost 30 years now, country music, it's really big down here, to say the least. So when you talk about country music in the UK, I had no idea.
Oh yeah. So the thing is, I always thought about country music as like, Dolly Parton. That was what I always envisaged as country music. But I mean, I'm going to a gig next year, beginning of the year, with huge American country stars. So it's becoming like a lot more mainstream over here. I mean, I guess for you, it's probably like a second religion, right?
Yeah.
In Texas.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's different, right? So you have Nashville sound and you have Texas, and it's they're uniquely different, right? And the whole Nashville scene, which are probably what you're probably going to be going to at the beginning of the year, when you have the Jason Aldeans, the Luke Bryans, the Luke Combs, Morgan Wallens. Those are kind of, they engage in different genres, if you will. So they're bringing in some R&B. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not true storytelling, but like Texas Red Dirt is, where there's a lot of storytelling. It's probably more closer to old school country with your Waylon Jennings, your, Johnny Cash's of the world, where it's more vocal and more acoustic. And so that's different. So anyways, that's kind of what I navigate towards.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the whole genre stuff, even though I do like it. So
I get it. So I guess we're learning quite a bit about me and my background, but I mean, Mark, you've been in the this kind of space for decades and decades and decades. So I'm keen to learn a bit more about your background as well, and I guess what brought you to the warranty space and ultimately Axiom.
Yeah, what's interesting for me, I was first introduced to the third-party administration, the warranty product protection industry in 98. So worked for a smaller TPA here in the Dallas area. Obviously met a lot of folks in the industry. Still stay in contact with quite a few of them. And so that's kind of like where I cut my teeth and whatnot, and then was brought back into it a few years later, where I've been in it for 20 plus years, and so that's done it from being out in the field, working with our clients, working with the retailers, and the sales folks within those retailers. Also, call center. Was very involved with call center, and ultimately, how do you recommend the plan? When do you recommend the plan? What are the tall tale signs of an interested buyer, et cetera? And then ultimately got involved, had the opportunity to come join Axiom Connected a few years ago and kind of go on the platform software side. And it's been awesome. It's been great to leverage my experience of the past and now be a part of how we all see the future of warranty protection.
Yeah. So you mentioned something there, which around kind of call center, which when you think about warranty and the way the warranty is sold is synonymous. It's okay. I call in, that's my only option. And over the past probably decade or so, that approach has come full circle, where actually, yes, there is still that direct to consumer channel, but how have you kind of seen it progress from that typical, okay, I have to call in, I have to, wait in a queue, I have to wait to be called back, versus, well, I can do it all now. How have you seen that progress in the industry?
So I think what's interesting for me is, when you look back at the legacy, you look back, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, even more probably. So customer goes into retail store, buys a product, perhaps they're offered the protection plan at the time of sale, or they're not, right? Same thing online. Most recently, you buy the product. A lot of these programs, they have to be purchased when the OEM warranty is still in effect. So a lot of times you buy the product today, you don't buy, you have no protection moving forward when that warranty expires, the OEM warranty expires. I think where we're seeing the shift now is where we are protecting and able to offer beyond that OEM warranty's expiration. And that's really when you need it, right? In your space, when you coming from the OEM industry, millions and millions of dollars have been spent on research and development, right? And so they know exactly when their product is going to likely fail, right? So they're going to base everything on it, and they're going to base their own warranty on that, on that product's likelihood of failing. And they're going to put it in such a way, whether it's 90 days, 1 year, 2 years, to when they're least vulnerable, right? Because the last thing an OEM manufacturer wants to do is have to replace or repair one of their products. And so that's the interesting thing for us, is that there's an opportunity to offer the customer protection once that manufacturer's warranty has expired. And that's the sweet spot, right? Whether it's 30 days before or 30, 60, 90 days after that manufacturer's warranty has expired, because now the customer knows they're no longer protected. And if they don't purchase the protection, they're ultimately self-insuring, meaning that, in the likelihood of that product failing, they're going to have to get a new product, right? Because a lot of times, depending on the product, you're not getting it repaired.
And I think that's the thing when we look at OEMs now, traditionally if you think about internal combustion engines, there is a proven track record of, when things fail, how often they are failing, how, and what that typical kind of repair process looks like. What was really interesting for me in working in the OEM space is when you start looking at electric vehicles, we are still in the infancy of electric vehicles. When we start to look at battery life, I think the typical battery life of an electric vehicle now is like 10 years. Well, actually, we're not at the back end of that life yet. So we don't know, actually, is that 10 years accurate? And when consumers are purchasing electric vehicles now, you don't really know the typical what breaks, what goes wrong on an electric vehicle. What am I going to have to bear in mind that I'm going to have to shell out? Because these, batteries on electric vehicles, they're not cheap. They're not cheap, and they are not quick to just switch out. It's not like your batteries run out on your walkie-talkie and you just switch them out. It's a complicated, expensive process. So, getting ahead of that now and being able to craft warranties that are specific to electric vehicles, so that when these vehicles come to the end of lease and actually they're having to be then remarketed aftermarket vehicles, well, I want to be able to know that, let's say that battery has 2 years manufacturer's warranty against it, that when it comes time, I'm not going to have to shell out $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 repairing that. It's peace of mind. So it's not just the evolution of the vehicles, it's the evolution of the product with those vehicles that's really important as well.
Yeah. I think, when you talk about the EV space, it's tough, man. It's tough to price that out, to gauge and understand, the impact. Actuaries in this industry, they have a tough job ahead of them, and that's ultimately where the big challenge is, right? And so that battery that's a challenge, right? To your point, that they could be $10,000-$15,000 to replace down the road. And ultimately, that's you kind of need that battery to operate it and whatnot. And I think that the industry sees a lot of leasing of EVs today. That way, the customer is not on the hook should the battery go out. They just turn the vehicle back in and get a new one.
Right. So I guess, my work involves working more on the technology side of things, more on the product side of things. You're very much on the client side, day in, day out, speaking with clients, speaking with existing clients, prospective clients as well. What are you seeing in terms of those trends about, what are clients really screaming out for when it comes to warranty and protection?
Yeah. I think what they just simply don't know, how to capture that customer once they leave the store, the online experience, even, in the auto space, once the service center, right? And so how do you retarget them? How do you capture that opportunity to offer them the protection? And that's what I'm seeing in like the biggest challenge. Everybody focuses on point of sale. Get it, understand it, 100% agree with it. But it's not an either or. It's an and. It's that whole shock and awe, if you will. It's like we're gonna recommend it at the time of sale. 15, 20% at best are going to purchase it and be protected. But what about, the 80, 85% down the road? And it's really, really important to understand who their customer is, what they purchased, and how to retarget them to offer protection and what kind of protection. I think, we all are very familiar with the term product, the 1, the 2, the 5, the 10-year term product. Great. They're covered for that amount of time. But what about those customers that simply don't have the means to purchase that term product because it is expensive? So to me, the subscription model is really encouraging and something that a lot of folks and a lot of TPAs and obligors out there and administrators, they struggle with because it's not that their core business, right? And they simply don't understand it. And so I think that subscription is a huge opportunity, not only for us, but for others, because it's something that they can budget. It's something that a customer can budget, just like they budget their car payment, their insurance, their cell phone, their internet, their YouTube TV. They can budget accordingly and build that into their plan, and then have that peace of mind that they are protected in the event that something happens to their product.
Very true. Very true.
So Matt, I think, from your perspective, you focus on the platform side of things. What makes our technology unique in this market, in your opinion?
Good question. I think for me, it's the fact that it scales, and it's a very broad term to use, but being in this industry now for quite a few years, there are, I think, too many platforms out there that simply don't scale, or they do scale, but there's a 7-figure cost associated with that scale. So, since I joined, I've seen our applications advance and progress to a point where no matter the client, no matter the product, no matter what the digital experience needs to be, the platform just fits. But what I think is quite unique as well is actually having both a front-end consumer-facing solution together with the back-end management system. So, for me, there are no shortage of providers on the market that do either of these very well, but nobody really that does both well. So, I'm sure everybody here can think of a few names off the top of their head that provide really solid front-end e-commerce experiences that you can just buy easily from. I mean, Amazon is a really good example, as a basic example of that. And then there's a lot of really robust back-end management systems that, are full functionality, have everything that you could ever need when it comes to warranty or protection. But like I say, there really isn't anybody that marries both of those together. So that's where I think our technology, certainly for me, when I came in and I looked at the full platform opportunity, it really hit home that actually it's full customer lifecycle management from, okay, make it really easy to buy, really easy to manage, and really easy to be able to use the full suite of applications that we've got. So that's definitely, for me, what makes it unique.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, for me, it's like what excites me the most is that this is something that's plug and play for the most part. And what I mean by that is, hey, listen, you can have it branded. You can put your own shell on it, your own branding on it. And heck, you can even bring your own protection product if you want it to, right? And so we do have clients that bring their own protection plans. We make our system work with it, as far as you're being able to quote, rate, and transact accordingly. And, it allows our clients to, to be able to offer protection, whether it's home, vehicle, debt protection. It allows, them to offer it to their clients beyond that point of sale, right? And as long as they have that customer's contact information, they can always retarget them, through different means like email, text messaging, postcards, etc., and allows them to capture, again, through e-commerce, right? Through that really simple, engaged format that allows them, the customer to transact and go through it at their own pace, specifically through our Moxa e-commerce site. We always kind of laugh. This allows our clients to make money, if you will, while they're sleeping. Because again, they don't have to worry about keeping the lights on like a brick and mortar has to, where they're only open a certain amount of time, or a call center only opens a certain amount of time. Not all customers engage and address and go shopping, when they're open. So this allows, hey, come in, check it out, when it's convenient. Could be 2:00 in the morning. They could, be working the second shift, and when they come home, they're not ready to go to bed, and they're like, hey, I do need protection on, or, whatever. And so that allows them to go ahead and go through that. And then also, the direct to consumer, allows call centers, allows agents to take calls and to quote and to transact and bind and all that good stuff. And so I just really think, in my experience, this plug and play opportunity allows anybody that wants to participate in this space, that opportunity to have this available to them, and they don't have to spend, millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars building their own. It's just something that they can get from our side and be up and running in, probably a lot less time. That does a lot less money than to build their own. So that's what I love about, our platform and our software.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So I guess, Mark, as anybody that knows you, as we all know, you're extremely concise. You're extremely to the point.
They're bad.
Well, we've talked a lot about APIs. We've talked a lot about adjusters, premiums, product, all of that type of thing. But for any listeners that are listening to this through, let's say, YouTube, who could be an end consumer, how would you summarize our platform and how would you summarize our offerings to an end consumer?
Oh boy, to an end consumer. That's a good question. I think, like I said before, we're there and able to allow that end consumer to navigate, to get a quote, anonymous quote. So we don't even know who the customer is, and give them a rate, give them cost. So then they can ultimately make that educated decision on their own time. It's not a pushy sales process. It's just something that they can go ahead and they can research, get the pricing, understand what it comes with, see an example contract, do their own due diligence, and then make an educated decision based on that. So they can sleep on it. Heck, they can sleep on it a couple of days, and they can be able to then purchase. And then the great thing is that should they have any questions or need further advice, they can simply call us up and one of our customer experience team members would be able to assist them. So it's kind of that either or and mentality, to where, we allow that to the end consumer. So that's kind of like how I would basically explain this to an end consumer.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you mentioned there, one of the words I should say, is anonymous, which is quite a key one, because especially today, I know that if I go onto a website, if I go to an e-commerce site, the second I have to part with any information, be it my name, be it my email address and that, I know I am opening myself up to 300 unread emails for the next few months from being, kind of spammed to a certain degree. But I know that actually, if I can, all I want is, I just want to know how much it costs. As a consumer, I want to know if I'm eligible, and I want to know how much it costs. Past that, I can then, if I want to, part with my own information. And that, I think that's why we see such a strong uptake when it comes to e-commerce, is because consumers, it's like, oh, I can just put my asset information in, and I can get the price returned. I can know if I'm eligible, and I can return to it at a later date, versus I know the second I part with any of that information that I'm not going to see a price until somebody calls me back, and probably calls me back 15 times in the space of an hour. So yeah, I just wanted to pick up on that point you mentioned about anonymous, because in the world that we live in now, when it comes to legislation, especially around CCPA, it's critical.
Yeah. And I think, for an end consumer, the last thing you want to do is be bothered or be harassed or anything like that. You just want to be able to, you want to be able to make an educated decision, not force into something, not, be scared if you don't get it, etc. At the end of the day, it's your money, and if you don't get protection and you're not covered, that's your decision, right? And everybody should be fine with that. But if they're, it's awareness, driving awareness, making them aware that this is available at their convenience, all anonymous, and it's through a trusted brand, right? So whether it's a AAA or it's a Carvana, right? You're aware of the brand, and if they're recommending this to you, then that comes with a lot of weight, and there's peace of mind as a consumer. All right, Matt, got a question for you. Misconception. What do you think is the biggest misconception regarding protection?
Yeah, so I think for me, years ago, that would have been true when it came to processing a claim. I think there's a common misconception that it'd be easier to land an elephant on the moon than it would to be able to have a successful claim.
Is that an English land?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's
on the moon?
Universal, absolutely universal.
It's universal. All right. Well, we don't say that down here in Texas, so that's interesting. So yeah, I think we always joked in the past that, customers were tired of getting to run around, right? They're having to call in, and then they're transferring them, and just making it extremely painful for the customer to file a claim or to get approval on the claim, making them go through hoops. I can remember back in the day is like you had to have your receipt, and those receipts were like very flimsy. And if they got exposed to light, they could basically fade. And because the retailer didn't know who the customer was. So all you had on this receipt in order to file a claim was the actual product and then the SKU item of the protection plan. And if you weren't able to provide that showed the purchase and the date of purchase, you didn't get coverage. So we've obviously have come a long way, where we're able to tie the purchase of the product with the protection, but more importantly, have that name tied to it and an address tied to it and an email address and a phone number attached to it. So yeah, we have come a long way. I think for me, one of the big misconceptions, my biggest misconception and it just gives me the weebie-jeebies. And that's a universal term right there, the weebie-jeebies, Matt. Is extended
Heebie-jeebies, maybe.
Heebie-jeebies is extended warranty, right? I think we're so much more than extended warranty. Extended warranty is basically just providing kind of protection on a part, right? You still have to pay for labor, shipping, etc. But our protection plans and pretty much all protection plans out there, they cover so much more, right? They cover the labor, they cover the replacement, they cover the repair costs, the shipping costs, etc. And so that's the biggest misconception is we are not simply extending the manufacturer's warranty. We're making it 10 times better because there's additional costs that are associated with that product's repair or replacement. And so to me, that's the biggest misconception I want to fix right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I mentioned earlier on that I could reel 20 misconceptions just off the top of my head. So I think what would be really cool actually is if we could do like a completely separate standalone podcast just purely addressing the misconceptions. You know, let's think about the Mythbusters without the warehouse and the some of the ridiculous myths out there. But let's do one specifically aimed about misconceptions in the warranty space. What do you think?
I love that idea. And I think we should also engage our listeners out there. So, definitely feel free to, to reply, to comment on any of the Mythbusters you want us to address. Might be a great way to engage our many fans out there.
Love it. Love it. So I think that's just about a wrap on today's episode of The Warranty Wire. Hopefully we've not gone too off track today, but hopefully we've given you a little bit more insight into Mark and I as presenters, a little bit about our backgrounds, and a little bit about the passion that we have for this industry. So thank you for listening today, and we hope to see you next time.
Warranty Wire.
Customer trust.
AI.
Every day in the warranty world.